In this video, I am going to introduce you to a couple of things that you got in your student supply kit, and I'm going to show you some techniques that will be very helpful as you are working on this first big project that we have this semester. So to get started, of course, one of the most straightforward things that I have here is a piece of cardboard. So I'm going to show you some measurements and some cutting techniques that will really help you as you're working on this assignment. In your student supply kit, you got an X-Acto blade and some replacement blades. And so the one that's already on the X-Acto is going to be a really nice, sharp, new blade. Be very careful with it. It will cut you. And then when this blade wears out, you're going to want to hold on to it. Be careful with it. Don't just throw it away in the garbage. You want to collect it in a little container and just safely dispose of that. And then you can put a new fresh blade on this. And the way that you're going to do that is really simply, let me make sure that I am focused on this. You're going to unscrew this top part here like this, and then you're going to see as this becomes loose that the blade removes very easily. Now obviously I'm not grabbing it on the side of the blade, I'm grabbing it on the edge that's not sharp. And so once that blade is done, you can put that aside and then get yourself a new blade, put that blade in that little slot, and then twist it back to get it nice and tight. And so you're going to want to do that every time your blade begins to get dull, and you should have enough replacement blades to last you this semester. But if you do end up needing to purchase more, they're pretty affordable and you can find them at most art supply stores. In addition to that, we have a pencil. You would have gotten a pencil with your sketchbook. And so I'm using a 2H pencil, but you can use any, if you want to use your HB or your 2B pencil, that's totally fine. The other item I have here that came in your kit is this ruler. Now this is a stainless steel ruler and it has this backing to it. And what you'll notice is when you hold this ruler down, like I'm actually applying pressure right now, it is not moving. And that's going to really help us as we're cutting this cardboard, because it's going to allow us to cut a consistent straight line and we aren't going to have to worry about our ruler moving at all. So you will find that very helpful, and you will feel that difference. If you haven't owned a ruler with that backing in the past, you will feel that difference immediately. Now the one other thing that I do have here is this cutting board. This cutting board is specifically from an art supply store, and the thing that's incredibly helpful about it is that it has these measurements on it which are going to help me as I work. If you are not able to afford this, it's totally fine. You can buy a much more affordable cutting board, in a kitchen supply area of either your grocery store or even a dollar store, and that's completely fine. It's not unreasonable to do that. I've done that a lot in the course of my life. The one caveat though is that when you do that, you don't have these measurements handy on your cutting surface, and you're going to see in this video that this is an incredibly helpful tool to have as you're working. And so with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you a couple tricks for measuring that are going to help you get straight lines and straight angles. And so first and foremost, what I want to show you on this piece of cardboard is that this line and this line are not even. They're not, perfectly straight. And so if I want to get a straight line, the easiest way to do that is inevitably just going to be to hold my ruler up here and to just cut it. But if I also want, because I happen to know that this line right here is a straight line, if I want this angle to be 90 degrees, then I'm going to actually want to line up this edge with the grid that I already have here. And once I line up this edge, I can see what's going on here, and I can use my ruler to line this up so that it will be 90 degrees. So I'm going to do that right now and show you what that looks like. So I'm going to line up this edge on this line down here. Let me move my computer out of the way. And then I'm going to line up my ruler. Actually, you know what? I'm going to work this way, because that way I can see the whole grid. So I'm going to line up this edge along this dotted line right here. And then I'm gonna line this ruler up along the dots that show me this line here. And so being really, really careful, really, really slow getting that lined up. It's kind of the key to making that work really, really well. And so now when I line that up, you can see that it's, you know, let me refocus. Let me make sure that this is focused on where I want it to focus. You can see that it's a little more narrow here and then it gets a little bit thicker here. And so by cutting it like this, we're actually going to fix this. And so just to reiterate, I lined this edge up first because I know that this is a straight line. And now I'm lining up my ruler so that when I make this cut right here, this line will be a 90-degree angle. It'll be perfectly perpendicular to this line. I'm holding my ruler down. Oop, and I'm sorry, I'm nudging the camera just a tiny little bit. Let me fix that. Make sure it's focused. Okay, good, good, good. And then because I have this sharp new blade, I'm really probably only gonna have to do 1 or 2 passes to get this to cut all the way. Let me do 1 more pass. And so notice how I'm being pretty patient with the cardboard. I'm not pushing too hard to get that off. And look at how clean that cut is. Boom, beautiful. And so that's what you want to be careful of. And so that little cutting demo also gives you a sense of how slow you should go. You really don't want to rush this. You don't want to really be too aggressive with this knife and push down too hard and do it too quickly, because you might end up just wearing out your blade faster. You might end up making a mistake. You might even end up hurting yourself. And you might end up just kind of cutting the cardboard too quickly and ending up with a frayed edge. And so you really kind of want to avoid all of that. Now, if I even wanted to go back, like let's say I really don't like the little schmutziness down here, I could just line this back up again, and I actually know that this is a perfect 90-degree angle now. And then I could just line up my ruler, you know, anywhere along this path here and just make sure that the top and bottom measurement are the same and do that same thing. So let's go ahead and make another cut together just so that you can watch that and see how that looks and make sure that you understand it. Now, I really want to get all of this off, so I'm going to go ahead and cut about right there, and I'm going to make sure that this measurement lines up perfectly. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll cut that 1/2 inch off. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right there in the middle. So we are perfectly lined up. And then again, I hold my X-Acto blade 2 ways. One way is like more of a pencil like this. And then the other way is this. And so, you know, you'll hold them both ways. The one thing that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't hold it like all the way out here. You know, if you're doing a gestural sketch, you want to hold a pencil this way, but for an X-Acto blade, you really want to have a degree of control. And so in this case, I'm going to hold it like this, and I'm going to push it down. Now, I'm applying pressure to the ruler, I'm pushing the blade down, but I'm not pushing too hard, and I'm going to do 2 or 3 passes to get this cardboard cut. Now notice how it's a little bit more difficult to cut this time, because instead of cutting along the line of that texture, now I'm cutting against that texture. So it's going to be a little bit more to cut through all of that. And I need just 1 more pass to get it all. Boom. And then look at how clean that visual texture is on the inside there. And it's because I was patient with my cutting. I didn't rush it. And if I, you know, remove that, I might need to take off that tiny little bit there at the end. Now I have this really beautiful edge. And so here you can see that one side. And then if I flip it over and like kind of focus on that. Now you can see that other edge and just look at how clean and crisp that is. And so just make sure that you are pacing yourself and taking your time as you are making this cut so that you can really end up with that clean surface. And once you're dull, once your blade starts to get dull, you will notice it, you will feel it. When your blade is really clean and new, these cuts will take a pretty minimal amount of pressure. You might feel a little bit of bumpiness as you're cutting along the textured, any kind of textured cut into the cardboard. You'll notice that a little bit more. You'll feel it'll just be a little bit bumpy, and then by the second or third pass, it'll feel much less bumpy. But that's with a really clean blade, really fresh, new, sharp blade. Once your blade begins to get dull, you will feel that really, really quickly, and you will notice that you will be putting more pressure to make that cut. Your cuts will be messy. All of a sudden, they won't be clean anymore. And so if you want to make those clean cuts, just make sure that you are switching your blade out pretty regularly and pay attention to that feeling. And like I said, you will know, once you know that feeling, you will know it. So, I have no doubt that by the end of this project, you will each know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, the other thing that I want to show you, we went over how to cut a line. It goes without saying, but I just want to make sure that I, kind of show you that if you want to cut, let's say that you want a strip of, 1/2-inch cardboard. If you have your measuring board here, that is very easy to do. So again, this is where, having this measuring board with these measurements becomes an asset, is that it's really easy to just line your cardboard up. And if I want that little 1/2-inch strip, so I'm going to line this up. Okay, so what I've got right now is that this edge is perfectly lined up with these dots. And then if I want to cut, let's do, like I said, 1/2 inch. I'm going to line my ruler up down here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Line it up there. I can feel that bumpiness. I'm holding my ruler down, so my ruler is not moving around on the cardboard. And I'm just gonna do one more pass, and I can still feel it a little bit up there. Boom, got free. And look at how clean and crisp that cut is on both sides. And so what I could actually do is I could just keep doing this. Here's another, I can line this back up and do as many 1/2-inch cuts as I want. Here's the thing though, if you do not have this backing for your cardboard, you can still do that. Like, you can still cut, consistent 1/2-inch pieces or strips, whatever you need to do. It's just going to take a little bit more time and measurement. And so I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I know this edge is straight. I'm going to go ahead and put my ruler down. Now I am looking at exactly where that 0 line is. You want to make sure that you do not put the ruler right at the very end and then measure 1/2 inch, because guess what? You're adding this extra amount of space to your cut, and this is like a solid 1/4 inch at the end of the ruler here. So I want to actually line up my ruler along this line here. And what I'm actually going to do is, instead of making a cut, I'm going to make a mark. And so what I have here, you can see that your ruler is divided up into 32, little millimeters in this inch. And so if you just find the 16 is 1/2 of 32, so I know that that is my halfway point. Now you can use a pen if you want. You don't have to use a pencil. I always prefer using a pencil. Then I'm going to go ahead and make that mark. And then once you get those 2 marks down, then you can put your ruler down, find both of those marks. I know it's kind of hard to see because of the shadow of the ruler. And then, same rule applies. And so you can notice now I'm not really, like, even if I'm you know, really not lined up with this cutting board, I'm still able to make this cut. So let's go ahead and do that. Beautiful. Just as nice, just as good. And if I hold it up, it's a little bit thicker than the one that I made using the back of the cutting board, but it's just as consistent. Like you can see that that thickness is really consistent the whole way. And so then once you have this cut, if you don't have this cutting board, a really easy way to just make the same cut again is to hold up what you just did to your, you know, to your piece. I'll use the pen to mark because it's a slightly thinner line. And so this is, again, if you don't have this backing for the cutting board and you just want to make your life a little bit easier, there you go. There's my second set of marks. I'm going to go ahead and line my ruler up. Make sure that those lines are perfect on there. Again, I'm being really, really careful, you know, holding this blade. Oop, made a teensy mistake. I want to be really careful to, you know, be applying enough pressure to where my blade isn't going to jump up over the ruler and cut myself. So, you know, always be sure that you're being, you know, very aware of, you know, where your blade is relative to your hand. All right, and so here you go. So here's how you can begin. You know, if I hold this up here and focus on it, here's how you can begin to build that texture and get that really cool visual effect. Now, the last thing that I want to show you is scoring and folding. So let's say that you want to make a fold in this piece of cardboard. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to flip it around, and because there's this kind of ugly label. So I'll cut it on this end and then I'll fold it, and you'll see how that fold looks on the other side. So if you do not want to actually cut your cardboard all the way, let's say that you're making a module. Oops, I am so sorry. Jeezy Pete's. Okay, let's line this back up. Okay, there we go. Let's say that I want to make a score. What I'm going to go ahead and do, and I'll just go ahead and measure, just because we're, you know, in the habit of it. So we'll just be really good about keeping that consistent. So let's say I'm going to score it at this 2-inch mark. So there's 2 inches. And there's 2 inches. All right. Lining up my ruler. Now, instead of cutting all the way through and doing like 4 passes, I'm just gonna do 1 pass or maybe 2. I don't have to do more than that. Now you can feel that I'm starting to cut through the paper. What I really wanna do is I only wanna cut through that first layer of paper. I don't wanna go all the way through. Now you'll notice that what I have here is this half cut thing where I can actually see inside. I can see that texture on the inside of the cardboard. There you go. But the other side is not cut. Now I could easily fold it this way, but if you don't want that exterior to be revealed, there is an easy way to fix it so that you can fold it the other way. What I want you to do is take the dull end, not necessarily of your X-Acto, because then you're holding the blade side, but the dull end of either your pencil or your pen. So I'm gonna hold my pencil and I'm gonna hold it like this, like as if I were using it like a smudging stick or a blending stump, or you know, even just kind of a really gestural piece of vine charcoal. I'm gonna hold it like this, and I'm gonna just really kind of firmly and confidently press into that cut that I made, that halfway cut. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to fold it this way. And so here you have on the outside this beautiful kind of really nice fold. And so in terms of making any kind of modular form, you know, let's go ahead and make one more. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and make a rectangle together. Let's just do it. So I'm gonna go ahead from this line, I'm gonna measure, you know, another 2-inch mark here, another 2 inches here, and then I'll cut it right here, and then we're gonna end up with a modular rectangle. All right. And one way that's also makes your life easier is to just really efficiently measure all of these measurements together. So I have my ruler right here. I've, you know, established, here's that, you know, here, these little pieces, so that we're lined up with this line. So here's 2. I want to go 2 more inches, so that's 4, and then 2 more inches is 6. Or let's say I even want to cut this one to be a little bit longer, so I'm making more of a kind of a slightly weirder shape. So 2, 4, and 7. And I'm just kind of making this up, but I'm gonna share this link that Midge sent me, and that's gonna give you some instructions for how to do this in kind of a really mathematical, calculated way. So 2, 4, and 7. Now I have my marks, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut those lines. But like I said, I'm just scoring them. I'm not cutting all the way through. So I'll make 2 passes for each one. And I'm really not even pressing down very hard. I'm just kind of letting the blade do most of the work. You can kind of feel it bouncing around that first time, less so the second time. And I'm gonna actually flip it around so that I can really safely make this final cut right here. And I'm gonna cut this one all the way off because I know that I don't need this edge to be part of this shape that I'm making. So there's that. Now I'm gonna do the same thing I did for this first line with these 2. So I'm gonna take my pencil, and I only have to go once to just press into those score marks, and then look at how easy it is to fold that. And here's my cool little shape. And so I could, you know, glue this together just with some hot glue. And then this could be a modular shape that could, you know, jut out any which way in my composition. And so now you have something really fun to play with. If I knew that I wanted to, you know, kind of cut it right here and, you know, maybe add another piece of cardboard to make it a really dynamic shape, then, you know, I've already got this form here. It would be relatively easy to just measure those lines, to just kind of create those lines on this form and cut it in that way. So, you know, I hope this is straightforward, and once we get done with this video, we'll talk about any questions that you have. So, pretty cool, right?